Madam Clerk, if you would.
This meeting is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6 et sec, notice of which was sent to the record in the Star Ledger and was posted on the municipal bulletin board.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Here.
Councilmember Sims.
Here.
Councilmember Greenman.
Here.
Mayor LaBrosse.
Here. Would everybody please rise for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I don't know, is there a city manager's report today?
Mayor, my city manager report was going to be the short statement and the budget introduction, followed by the resolutions by the clerk.
Okay.
Excuse me. Mayor and Council, tonight I'm introducing the 2014 municipal budget, which begins to address the many of the financial and operational shortcomings of the city. I want to thank the members of our Finance Committee, the Deputy Mayor, Councilwoman Greenman, our CFO, excuse me, our auditor, and myself for their hard work on the budget. As most of you already know, this administration came into office last July and inherited a city that, to be kind, was fiscally challenged. It's taken us many months of hard work to get the city's financial house in order, and that long process does not end tonight. The budget is a work in progress, but it represents the broad policy outlines the City Council has laid out for the city. More than anything, the 2014 budget is a realignment budget that changes the budget structure from previous years of focusing on resolving long-term issues over immediate concerns. For example, non-recurring revenue has been eliminated from the budget because it has been proven to be a major cause of tax instability over the past 5 years. In other words, we're eliminating budget quick fixes that push off today's problems to tomorrow. There's also less emphasis in this budget on risky revenue and inclusion of more stable revenue sources such as the city's lease agreements and franchise fees. Moreover, this budget represents an investment in rebuilding the city and upgrading its services. Money is being appropriated to fixing roads, improving parks, which many residents have said to be a priority to them. After reviewing the operations of our sanitation department, I believe the city can go back to twice-a-week garbage collection for the residents with little or no impact on taxes. Over the next several weeks, we'll review the budget further and present a final budget to the public in April. Now I'd like to turn this over to our CFO, Jim Mangan, to present. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Before I start, if I could just, do the same disclaimer I did the last time. This is the same. This is the first budget that we're going to be doing, together. I don't know everybody's comfort level yet, so if I get too basic, I want to apologize in advance. But for me, it's really more important that you understand. I know that you understand. So if I say something that's a little too obvious, I'll apologize for that. Now, having said that, we're required in New Jersey, to adopt a municipal budget. The budget itself represents the financial plan for the administration to execute the City Council's vision. Okay? And the way we do that, is through the budget adoption process. So in keeping in line with that, what we do with the budget is we start with an overall goal, a goal that reflects not just your vision, but how you want to accomplish what your vision is, okay? I'm not technical. Okay, so this is our budget goal for this year. To craft a budget that's accurate, sets the framework for long-term tax stability while providing the funding and planning necessary for redevelopment, community improvements, as well as known future events, okay? What you're going to hear a lot, is the fact that the budget is long-term. Okay, part of the city's problem in the past, based on the research that I've done on the past budgets, is that they always seem to be focused on that particular year and didn't necessarily look ahead to the following year, the year after. Okay, we attempted to change that. Okay, the budget that we're presenting with you today goes beyond 2014. Goes to 2015, 16, and then beyond. Every decision that went into this budget was always weighed against its impact on what it's going to have in 2014, 15, and so on. Okay. Which is why you're going to see long-term tax stability, which is our overall long-term goal. Tax stability is what really drives everything that you're looking to accomplish. Okay, in the past, you've experienced these wild fluctuations in your tax increase. You're not really doing your residents a lot of good if you have a zero increase one year and it's backed up by a huge tax increase the next year. Okay, you'll do your residents a lot more service if we stabilize the increase. Okay, it's also exactly what your investors and what developers are looking for. Okay, they're always looking for stability. So you're going to see a lot of things in here are long term. You're also going to see a lot of planning. Okay, Anthony and I have had a lot of discussions on the fact that what we really need to do is get out in front of a lot of the problems that we have. What we're looking to do is to be proactive instead of reactive. Instead of when a situation occurs, okay, how are we going to fix it? What we're looking for is to put funding in place that prevents, so when something does happen, okay, we at least have a resource for it. And that's when at the end where you see as well as known future events. Okay, that's also a key. There are certain things that we know are going to occur. Okay, things like tax appeals, things like redevelopment, capital expenditures. We know these things are going to happen. Okay, so what we need to do is plan for them and begin to start providing funding for them. Okay, there have been too many issues in the past where that wasn't necessarily addressed. I'll give you an example. There were all these articles in the paper a few months ago about your retiree payout liability. Now, as of last year, as of 12/31/2012, the liability was over $15 million. That's money that the city owes, has to pay out. Some governing body in the future is going to be saddled with that expense. Okay, we need to take that on as an issue. Now, we don't have all the answers, that's for sure. And this particular budget definitely doesn't provide the funding for that. There's no $15 million pot. But it is something that we're going to have to come up with a plan for. Now, along with the goal itself, the two objectives that are in this budget are to provide the funding that we need to make the future growth in the city happen and to address what Anthony referred to in his opening statements as what we call structural imbalances. Now, the structural imbalance in the budget, quite frankly, is the single biggest problem that you have that needs to be overcome. Okay, let me just explain what a structural imbalance is. Budgets are balanced. You come up with what you need to run the city for the year, which is your appropriations. Okay, and it gets balanced on the other side by your non-tax revenue, and then whatever's left over is the amount that you raise by taxation to run the city. A structural imbalance occurs, when there's an event going on that's not being accounted for in the budget. And in Hackensack, the structural imbalance has to do on the revenue side. For too many years, the non-tax revenue was balanced by using what Anthony referred to as what we call revenue at risk. Okay, revenue at risk is non-tax revenue that's not recurring year after year. Okay, what you want to put into your budget for non-tax revenue are those things that you know are going to come in every single year. License fees, municipal court fines, things like lease agreements, state aid. Those things that you know are going to occur year after year. That hasn't been the case in Hackensack, and that's a long-term problem that we're looking to address this year in this budget. Okay. It's the revenue at risk that's really driving these fluctuations in the tax levy. Okay, if you look here at and this is the increase to the municipal tax levy. Okay, now just for clarification on the bottom, you'll see that it says it includes the library. Okay, the reason for that is anytime you see a multi-year analysis or comparison like this, you have to realize that in 2011, the library tax was split out from the municipal tax levy. So if you're going to do a multi-year comparison, the fair way of doing it is to include the library tax in it. Okay, so all these figures are inclusive of the library tax. Okay, now you'll notice in 2009, okay, there was a very slight decrease in the tax levy, a $2,000 decrease in the tax levy, which equated to a 0% tax increase. Okay, now as I said, on the surface, that looks very beneficial for your residents, a zero tax increase. Okay, but it all depends on how you come about that increase. And you'll notice in 2010, that zero was backed up with an 8% increase. In 2011, that 8% increase was backed up with a 10.8% increase. So for that 3-year period, municipal taxes went up almost 19%. Okay, that's tax instability, and that's exactly what it is that we're going after. Okay, you would have been much better served, instead of an average increase of 6% per year, if taxes raised 4% a year. Your residents would have been much better off. Okay, and so what we need to do is look at those tax increases, see why they occurred, and make sure that what we're doing today isn't going to cause that in the future. Because it's important to realize that where we stand today is because of decisions that were made by governing bodies in the past, and it's very important to understand that the decisions that you make today are going to affect the future. Okay? In fact, if you remember at the Finance Committee meeting, Rose, you had asked how it was that we got here. And what I thought was funny was, Kathy, you had asked about what had happened between 2010 and 2011 because we had this significant drop in non-tax revenue, and that's what got me looking at all this, and I just kept going backwards, So it's important to realize what happened so that we don't make those same mistakes. Okay, just gonna skip up. Okay, now this is that same slide, you'll see at the bottom showing the increase to the municipal tax levy. Only this time what I did was I added the revenue at risk. Okay, again, revenue at risk is one-time revenue that goes into your budget that may or may not occur the following year. If it doesn't occur the following year, you have to make up for it one way or another. Either find another revenue or possibly cut your budget, or failing that, you're raising taxes. But it has to be made up some way. So you'll see in 2008 that the surplus anticipated, surplus that went into the budget as revenue was $7 million. Now that's a significant amount, okay? The surplus back in 2008, just so you know, was about 10 million. And of that 10 million, 7 million of it went into the budget, okay? In terms of revenue at risk, you see parking utility surplus, okay? Which could be considered a revenue at risk because if the parking utility doesn't have a surplus, we're not going to be able to use it as revenue, okay? Now, moving on to 2009, what happened was, without that $7 million in surplus, okay, it needed to be made up somehow, okay? And that's where the revenue at risk came in, So to make up that $3 million loss in surplus, you'll see $1.3 million from a reserve to pay debt service, $1,089,000 was taken right out of the parking utility, not even the parking utility surplus, which was $500,000. This was just $1 million came out of the parking utility, as well as this $108,000 interfund payable, which was probably, in 2008, the current fund probably transferred too much money into payroll, and it was turned back in 2009, which is an appropriate transaction, but don't count it as revenue because it's not going to happen again. And you'll see that, by doing that, by replacing that surplus with revenue at risk, they were able to achieve this 0% tax increase, okay? But turning to 2010, skip the surplus for a second, and you'll see that instead of the 1.3 million in reserve to pay debt service, it wasn't there. All that was there was 300,000, okay? So there's $1 million shortfall that needs to be made up, okay? The $1 million and $1,089,000 that came out of the parking utility wasn't there. That needed to be made up. So again, when you don't have it, you have to look for an alternate source, and in this case, they went to general capital and took the surplus out of general capital of $1.5 million. The rest of it, the rest of that replacement money came out of surplus. See, surplus went from $4 million up to $5.9 million. And even at that, you had an 8% tax increase in 2010. Okay, moving ahead to 2011, okay, the general capital surplus, which was $1.5 million the year before, now there's only $500,000 left. That million has to be made up, okay? Only in this case, you can't use surplus because you used too much of it the year before, all right? It has to be made up somewhere, and in that year, in 2011, it was made up by raising taxes, and that was your 10.8% increase. Now in the last 2 years, in 2012 and 2013, the taxes stabilized, okay? You see a 2.05% increase in 2012, 2.4% last year, okay? But the taxes stabilized, still using this revenue at risk, okay? You see $236,000 in the reserve to pay debt service in 2012, another $86,000 in the interfund payable from payroll, depleting capital surplus completely by using $336,000, as well as this reserve for pension of $494,000. Which, if I had to guess, and I don't know this for a fact, was a pension deferral done in 2009? In fact,
Yeah,
Okay.
they bonded the long-term obligation.
All right. And what happened was the reserve that from the savings that was achieved in 2009 with the pension deferral should have been then used as a revenue over time and not as a one-time thing in 2012 because in 2013 it's not there. Okay. Last year, you see the reserve for debt service, $655,000, and that insurance reimbursement, which had to do with Superstorm Sandy, of $109,000. Okay. Now you see 2014. Okay, we're going to continue to use the parking utility surplus. Okay, it is a revenue at risk. Okay, but part of our plan for parking is to get more realistic with the parking budget. And what we're going to do is, beginning in 2015. We're going to start stepping that number down, probably by 1/5 each year for the next 5 years until it's been completely eliminated. At the same time, we're going to turn to the parking utility and actually charge the parking utility for those expenses that the current fund is currently charging. Again, this has to do with the accuracy, make the budget more realistic. Okay, but you see that what we're looking at, eliminating the revenue at risk. And it's going to leave us with, at this point in time, a 2.64% tax increase. Okay? Now that's the part of the budget where we talk about the realignment. Okay? And this is what makes this budget fundamentally different from budgets in the past. Okay? It's a long-term approach. We're taking that revenue at risk out of the budget, and we're going to replace it with recurring revenue. The stuff that we know is coming in year after year. These are your lease agreements, your franchise fees. We're going to be taking a long, hard look at whoever has any type of contract, any kind of long-term contract with the city where the money is owed. Okay? And we're going to put those revenues into the budget. By putting them in the budget, it's also going to allow us to track it. Okay? And it's also a better source than this revenue at risk, because looking ahead to 2015, we won't have to replace these as has happened in the past. Okay. The other part of the goal, if you remember, said that the budget, one of the goals of the budget was to be accurate. Okay. What's happened, the last few years, you'll see a significant amount of budget transfers. Okay. Now, you want to make your budget as realistic as possible, as genuine as possible. You want it to really reflect what the expenditures are. If you do it correctly, okay, you should be able to keep transfers down to a minimum. Now, one of the reasons I put this slide up here is because, I intend to come back here a year from now and to see a 2014 number that's significantly lower. So I did this to kind of like push myself, because I'm going to look stupid if I can't do that. Okay, going ahead. Okay. Again, one of the goals in this budget, we talked about planning for future needs. Okay, one of the things that we wanted to do was greatly increase the expenditure for the capital improvement fund. So you see in 2014, we're taking that up to 400,000, doubling last year's expenditure. But what I wanted to show you on here is you'll see in 2010 was that 8% tax increase. Okay, in order to keep that tax increase that low, which again came about because of the revenue at risk, you see the capital improvement fund expenditure was completely taken out of the budget. Now, once you take it out, it's very difficult to put it back in. And in 2011, you'll see they were only able to put it back in the amount of 163,000. Never did come back to the funding that was back in 2008, 2009, until this year when we go up to 400,000. And to be perfectly honest, you know, Anthony will agree, if we could take that up more, we really should, okay, because you have significant capital needs. Okay, that's the same slide, just presented differently. Okay, from this slide, you can see this is just showing the increases in the total appropriations. The budget that we're proposing increases spending by 1.9 million, or 2.7%. Okay, slightly below the 2013 increase of 1,982,000. Okay, but what I wanted you to see here was in 2009, which was the year of the 0% tax increase, you'll see spending only went up 134,000. Okay, the problem with that is that that's not realistic. Okay, in 2010, you'll see spending went up 5.8 million. That's what happens, you know, when your goal is not tax stability. You know, when the goal is achieving a 0% tax increase at all costs. You know, so that's why nominal increases in spending are normal. Okay, it's the wild fluctuations are what we're trying to avoid. Okay. I wanted to show you just on your debt service, okay, because last year there was a reduction in debt service, about 360,000, I believe, and you'll see this year there's an increase of 343,000. You know, now one of the things that we're going to try and do is keep our debt service budget flat. You know, if there is a drop in debt service in one year, as occurred last year, what we'll be looking to do is accelerate one of our debt payments and try and keep the budget flat. Again, stability as opposed to the fluctuations. Okay. Now these are just some of the other expenses. Okay. We'll see. For example, in 2014, okay, you'll see that our pension increase for the two pension systems are $257,000. Okay. Our group insurance, you know, employee health benefits, which was actually about a $2 million increase. Okay, you'll see the increase that we're showing here is $1,059,000. That goes back to the accuracy part of the budget. What we're doing is we're budgeting for the $2 million increase in the premium, but we're also budgeting for the reimbursements that we get from the employee contributions, as well as the reimbursement that the library gives, and the parking utility gives. Okay, in your budget document, you'll see that the state requires you to really spell out what you do with your health benefits. Okay, hasn't been done in the past. If you look on budget sheet 3B,
Yeah.
is it really?
Yeah.
If you look at budget sheet 3B, you'll see that the health benefit budget is fully broken out to see that it is accurate. Okay, this is just a few other items, you know, in the budget in comparison to the 2013 and 2012 budget. For example, if you look on the salary line, okay, you'll see that salaries only increased by $14,000. Okay, even though we did budget for a salary increase for employees. The reason that we were able to keep that flat is because you eliminated the salary budget for the, I always get it wrong, the Human Services Department?
Health and Human Services.
Yeah, okay. And so we were able to offset that the increase, you know, with that decrease, okay? Some of the other things, you'll see the capital improvement fund, okay, the increase in that. The reserve for uncollected taxes, for now, we're keeping that flat. That still needs to be recalculated. Okay. Now, what this is, these were just some of the highlights of the budget. We'll answer any questions that you have. But now to execute the budget, we need to put together a budget action plan. The budget action plan is not necessarily everything that's in the budget, okay? Because there are some things that we're doing that aren't reflected in the budget. Doesn't mean that we're not doing them, But this is the plan, not just the budget action plan. Really, this is kind of the finance action plan and looking at what we're going to be doing, during the next year. And you'll see our two objectives again: planning for future growth and going after these structural imbalances. Planning for future growth, we're going to provide funding for redevelopment. Okay, you'll see a significant increase in the redevelopment budget in this budget. We're going to budget and plan for future capital expenditures, and not just the increase that you saw in the capital improvement fund. Okay, we need to come up with a plan for those recurring capital expenditures like your road repaving and things like that. Okay, we need to create and fund a plan to deal with the issue of tax appeals, as well as to address the $15 million retiree liability payout. Okay, and the last one is create and fund a long-term plan to address the recurring capital issues that I just said. Over on the structural imbalances, again, what we're looking to do in this budget is to begin the process of reducing that reliance on surplus as revenue. We need to come up with a plan to completely reduce the reliance on deferred charges. Deferred charges are expenses that occur this year that are then going to be paid for in future budgets. Okay, for example, I think a couple years, 2 years ago maybe, you did a special emergency appropriation for police retiree payouts. Last year you did a bond ordinance for tax appeals. Okay, these are going to be future expenditures, for events that are occurring this year. Okay, again, we're looking to eliminate all revenue at risk. Okay, we're going to begin the process of reducing the reliance on parking utility surplus by coming up with a parking utility budget that's realistic and addresses the needs of the parking utility. And then we're going to track certain city revenues, such as the lease agreements, et cetera, by putting them right into the budget. You'll be able to track them as well, from budget account status reports. Okay, now that's going to be an ongoing process because the state has rules as to what they consider to be new revenue. It's not new revenue for Hackensack, but because we'll be putting them in the budget for the first time, state considers them to be new revenue. So we have to follow the state's rules. In some cases, we won't be able to put it into the 2014 budget. We'll have to document it in 2014 and then include it in the 2015 budget. Okay? And then finally, we also need to come up with a plan to address the issue of increased spending for our professionals. And the way we intend to do that is by completely overhauling our encumbrance system as well as our bill review process. And those are two things that we're actually working on right now. Okay, those are the basic highlights, of the budget. If you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them. The plan is, at this point, is, as Anthony said, it is a work in progress. There's still a lot of things that we need to look at. Okay, I still need to do a complete salary analysis of every department, and Anthony and I need to really basically scrub the department's other expense budgets. But for the most part, the fixed costs, those are all set. The debt service, capital, as well as local revenue, things like that. That's all set, but we do still have a decent amount of work to do. Okay. Plan is that we'll have the public hearing on the budget at the council meeting of April 8th, and at that time, we plan to have a budget amendment, and to be perfectly honest, that budget amendment will probably be significant enough to warrant another public hearing. Okay. And the public hearing would be on the amendment only, and then we'll be able to adopt at that point. Okay. Okay, that's basically the process. Okay. If anybody has any questions at all?
My first question is, I mean, how are we in relationship to the cap? We're in
Okay.
shape.
Yep, yep. Again, if you look in your budget document on sheet number 3E? No. Nope, 3B. Okay. 3B, okay, will show the two cap calculations. Actually, I was wrong before when I said the health benefits. That was 3C. But the cap calculations are on sheet 3B. On the appropriation cap, okay, and later on tonight, we'll be introducing the cap bank ordinance.
Right.
Okay. The appropriation cap, we're coming in at $212,000 under that cap. On the 2% levy cap, okay, no, that's not right. I gotta fix that. You're under about $204,000, okay? I got a formula error, but I remember it was $204,000.
Okay.
Okay, the budget as it stands today does comply with all the state rules, regulations. We are able to send it down to Trenton. We should be able to get it approved, no problem. But that's not to say that it's done, because it's
Right.
not.
You're not on local review, you're on division review this year, so that's gonna be, subject to Trenton's process. They'll assign a reviewer to it and call and ask questions or request documentations. And we'll furnish it, and we'll get the, eventually they're gonna wanna see what the amendment is, so, you're gonna look about a month's process before it's actually, nailed down. But you're moving along at a good pace. You're early, you've got a solid first draft going down. Got a lot of work to do between now and then, but it certainly is a good part. The only 2 cents that I wanted to throw in with regard to that revenue at risk or structural impact, whatever anyone chooses to call it, it's all the same thing. All those words are synonymous. Revenue at risk, the kitchen sink revenues, the one-time, or whatever you call it.
Right.
With regard to your reserve for payment of debt service, when you bring that over as a revenue, okay? You are obligated to reduce the debt service that's included in there. What's happened here for quite some time is cash raised that's pledged to outstanding debt was just brought in as a revenue to lower taxes, okay? The local bond law forces you to do this, and the language is in every capital ordinance that you adopt that. You can be out on bonds and notes, and then get a subsequent grant, receipt, reimbursement, and that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to take that receipt and pledge that towards the principal pay down. You can't say, keep the note outstanding or the bonds outstanding, and say, okay, well, we're gonna take the reimbursement or this secondary source of revenue and spend it on something else. So if you see this, but that's stripped out of here in its entirety. I don't know how this got away with this for so long, but anytime that you'll see under this watch, revenue that's reserved, that'll be tied to an ordinance number, and you'll know specific, and you'll see a corresponding appropriation on the other side of this equation. So you know exactly that same amount is being anticipated and appropriated to pay down, in addition to what is included in the levy. So this, that's completely wrong. You have to have those reserves included as additional pay downs on the appropriation side. So you won't see.
You won't see that again.
You won't see that nonsense again.
Good.
Likewise, if you look at the parking utility budget, okay, you'll see an increase, an overall increase in the parking utility budget of $530,000. Now, at first glance, obviously, why are we raising the parking utility budget by $500,000? Reality is we're not raising. It's actually a reduction, okay? The $576,000 that we use in surplus on the current side, okay, was never appropriated for in the parking utility budget. And it should have been. It had to be, okay? It was a parking utility appropriation and a current fund revenue, okay? So the parking utility budget was actually understated by 576,000. So when you see that increase in the parking utility budget, it's not an increase. It's just a more accurate reflection of what the parking budget really is. Again, as we said before, a lot of things in the budget are just a completely different way of doing things, you know? And we're trying to get it as accurate as possible so that when you pick up a report and read it, you'll know that these numbers are genuine.
I want you to see that 1/5 amortization every year, right in front of you, 600, or a fifth less, a fifth, 125,000 less, right across there. That's, that's what we want, 120 less. That's what we want to see year after year after year, a slow takedown of that reliance on the current fund on the utility surplus. Right? It's too much to do in one fell swoop in one year. So we implemented a 5-year phase-out plan that, and you'll see it on both sides of the equation. Okay. So I didn't mean to interrupt before. I just wanted to get
No,
that.
I appreciate it. It's a good explanation. I have no other questions. Any other questions up here on the council?
I feel like we are putting a lot of controls and looking forward. I think the city is going to be in good shape. And thank you for your expertise and thank you for explaining the whole thing to us. Thank you.
And just once we're adopted, I have a practice of where I try to provide either quarterly or monthly budget account status reports to the governing body because I want you to know exactly where we stand. The frequency is up to you, but it's very important for us to let you know what's going on, which is also why it's important that the budget has to be accurate at first. I don't want to send you a document, you're asking me all these questions, so we wanted to be as clear as possible.
No, we beat him up pretty good last week.
Well, I want to thank everybody involved, Mr. Mangan, Frank, Deputy Mayor, Councilwoman Greenman. This is letting the citizens know we're serious about what we said. We're going to address the fiscal problems that we're facing in the city. I know you guys, especially Mr. Mangan, you came in late, and to be presented with some of the issues that this city has been dealing with had to be quite an endeavor to undertake, and I can only imagine. And I know Mrs. Canestrino has been very instrumental in working with you and Mrs. Grayman, or Ms. Grayman.
Your best friend or your worst nightmare, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a good thing, but
I'll say this, Mayor, though, it's,
right.
to be perfectly honest, like I said, every decision that goes into the budget was really long-term. Decisions are very easy when the vision is clear, and the council obviously has got a clear vision on what you want this thing to look like.
This is exactly what we were looking for, was tax stabilization.
Yeah.
To avoid the ups and downs, the roller coasters of tax increases and.
Oh, I'm sorry, that reminds me, for the public hearing, okay? In addition to this analysis, okay, I'll also do a 2-year projection, a 2015 to 2016 projection, which was on last year's best practices checklist.
Okay.
When you eliminate the revenue at risk, it's a lot easier to do the projection because you don't have to guess on whether something's going to be there or not.
And this, the PowerPoint, they started this at our request, actually, 2 years ago, 2 budgets ago, for the citizens, because it's budgets for dummies. You can read this and understand what's going on without having to go through the full municipal data sheet. This is great. The fact that this is being seen by anybody who wants to see it, they can go online and see this. The presentation, the adoption, every part of it is, and like you said, it's a living, a living creature. Basically, it's ongoing, and the fact that we're going years down the road with this, presenting it in a way that shows we're being fiscally responsible to the citizens is great. Again, I want to thank everybody involved. Thank you.
If I could just have 2 minutes, real quick. I also want to thank everyone on the Budget Committee, because I think everyone, put a lot of hard work and time, and especially our CFO, auditor, city manager. Rose, myself, and I think it shows. It shows that a lot of time and a lot of thought went into this, and it's something, it's only a first step. You know, it's the first one that's being introduced, and we have more work to do, but I think it's something that we really should be proud of, because you can see the difference in this over what we've looked at in the prior years. And I think, you know, we pledged at campaign time that we were going to work very hard at controlling the expenditures. And, you know, when you look at, we have expenditures of approximately $1.9 million that's reflected in this budget. When you look at the driving forces here, we have over $1 million increase in insurance. We had a $350,000 increase in debt service and a $260,000 increase in pensions. I mean, you're looking at 1.6 million of that 1.9 that really are expenditures that we have no control over. You know, we are a self-insured city, so our health insurance provider dictates to us what we must allocate in our budget for our insurance. Same thing with our pension system. That is dictated to us what we must include in our budgets for that. $350,000 increase in debt service. If you remember, those of you that attend council meetings, I mean, last year we had to sell a lot of our short-term notes and convert them into bonds, and incurring more principal outlay, and that's what you're seeing reflected here. So I mean, we're looking at, of the $1.6 million basically that was an uncontrollable expense. I think that really says a lot, and it's a great job for controlling the expenditures this year. Jim also pointed out a slide where he talked a lot about transfers and going back and forth. And those of you that know me know this is something that I complained about for years and years and years, because the budget should be a living document. It shouldn't be something that we present to you today and then we put it in the drawer and we forget about it till next year. It should be something that we use to manage and control the expenditures of the city. And because we have certain accounts where they've been over budgeted, and probably almost an equal number that have been under budgeted for $2.8 million being swapped around. It's very difficult to manage departments when the information is not documented correctly, because you have no idea. You have a number, and that number means nothing. So what's going to happen over the next month or so is Jim and the rest of the budget committee and Anthony is going to work very, very hard to make those numbers be realistic. And there's always going to be something. I know, he wants to get down so there's no budget transfers. And hey, I love that too. But we have to be realistic. There's always going to be something, because it is a plan, right? It isn't actual, it's a plan. But we want to greatly reduce that and show that we're managing these departments, we're managing these expenses, and we're showing you, the residents, that we're being as fiscally responsible as we possibly can to give you the best return on your investment here in the city. Again, I could go on forever because it's budgets, and I promise I won't. So, thanks everyone for doing a great job. I look forward to seeing this, in a month from now, or a little less than a month from now. And
28 days.
And you're going to see some changes, but they're all going to be good. Thanks.
Say one thing as well. If you recall, just the cost of our health insurance went up by $2.2 million, which exceeded our cap, which in the prior years, we never budgeted for the reimbursement from the library or employee contributions, which this year, actually, now we're getting down to the nitty gritty, and we are taking that into consideration. If not, we were over the cap right there. So everybody sat down and pitched in, and the deputy mayor and I had several heated conversations about where it was coming. We found it, but it was never getting put back into it. It was never budgeted. It was taken into account, but never budgeted in. So if we didn't find these, the deputy mayor credit for this one, if it wasn't put in there and actually applied to it, I mean, we were up around 3.7%, well over the cap. So, I want to thank everybody, because, a lot of hard work, blood, sweat, and tears went into this, because this was not an easy task to get here. Most of this 2% or 1.9%, 7%, is all out of our control, completely mandated, that we can't do anything about. So, hats off to everybody for a job well done.
Okay. And again, I want to thank Mr. Rattino and the whole Budget Committee. I think you guys did a great job, and I'm sure the citizens that do watch this can appreciate the work that went into it, and I'm sure they'll be happy with what we present them next month.
Mayor, if I could, just some housekeeping things. You'll see on your agenda tonight, there are 4 resolutions. Okay, just wanted to, they're all related to the budget, and just so that you know what they are. The first one is Resolution 108-14. Will be the cap bank ordinance.
Right.
Okay, now this is the appropriation cap. Okay, the law says that we can increase our appropriations by the cost of living increase, which this year is 0.5%. The cap bank ordinance allows us to raise that limit to 3.5% and to bank whatever is over. In reality, it wouldn't be necessary to ever tap into the bank, but to be perfectly honest, it's a good tool to have because you don't know what could happen in the future. Okay, that's Resolution 108-14. Resolution number 109-14 is to authorize the reading of the budget by title only. Back in the old days, before they did that, you actually had to read every line, every number.
Right.
But we do make copies available to people, and that's how we're able to read by title only. Resolution 110-14 has to do with the tax appeals in 2013. What it does is it's a tool for us. When we calculate the reserve for uncollected taxes, if we pass this resolution, it allows us to take into account the tax appeals that occurred in 2013. Now, we may not necessarily use it in the calculation, but what the resolution does is it gives us the option.
The option.
We'll do it both ways, and we'll do the one that works out best. And finally, Resolution 111-14 is the introduction of the budget itself.
Okay. That said, Madam Clerk, would you read resolution number 108-14?
It's the introduction of ordinance number 12-2014, an ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank.
Okay. May I have a motion, please?
I'll offer.
Offered,
Second?
seconded. Roll call?
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye.
Be it resolved that the above ordinance, being ordinance 12-2014, is introduced, is now passed on first reading, and that said ordinance shall be considered for final passage at a meeting to be held on April 8th, 2014, at 7:00 p.m., or as soon thereafter as the matter can be reached at the regular meeting place of the City Council, and at such time and place all persons interested be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance, and that the city clerk be and she is hereby authorized and directed to publish said ordinance according to law, with a notice of its introduction and passage on first reading, and of the time and place when and where said ordinance will be further considered for final passage.
Okay, thank you. Resolution 109-14.
109-14 is a resolution authorizing calendar year 2014 budget to be read by title only.
May I have a motion, please?
Offered.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Moving on, Resolution 110-14.
Is a resolution to reduce 2013 levy by tax appeal judgments.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
Offer.
Second?
Roll call?
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. And last but not least, Resolution 111-14.
111-14 is resolution for the introduction of the calendar year 2014 budget. Be it resolved that the following statements of revenues and appropriations shall constitute the municipal budget for the calendar year 2014. Be it further resolved that said budget be published in the Bergen Record in the issue of March 14th, 2014. The governing body of Hackensack does hereby approve the following as the budget for the calendar year 2014.
Offered.
Before or after it's voted on?
Either one.
I was going to do it after, but you want me to do it now?
Okay.
Either one.
Okay.
Okay, Mrs. Greenman offered. Ms. Greenman offered.
I'll second.
Seconded. Roll call?
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye.
Okay, and then I have to read the statement. Notice is hereby given that the budget and tax resolution was approved by the City Council on March 11, 2014. A hearing on the budget and tax resolution will be held at the Municipal Building, 65 Central Avenue, Hackensack, New Jersey, 07601, on April 8, 2014, at 7:00 p.m., at which time and place objections to said budget and tax resolution for the calendar year 2014 may be presented by taxpayers or other interested persons.
Okay. Good, thank you. This time I'd like a motion to open the meeting to the public.
I'll offer.
Offered? Seconded. Okay. Roll call?
Councilmember Pataglia. Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims. Aye. Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. At this time, anybody from the public who would like to get up and speak, please come to the podium. Give your name and address to the clerk. Seeing none, I'd like a motion to close to the public.
Offered.
Roll call?
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Any other comments from the council? None? I think we
I
did.
just want to thank you, the committee again, did a great job, and I saw the luxurious accommodation for Mr. Di Maria. So the luxurious accommodation is for you.
Okay. At this point, we see the need to go into closed session, so could you please read that?
It's a resolution calling for an executive meeting of the City Council for the following purposes. Whereas the mayor and council of the City of Hackensack deem it necessary to discuss certain actions under Section 7B7 and 7B8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, which pertains to matters falling within attorney-client privilege, ongoing litigation, and personnel matters concerning the employment of a current or prospective public employee. Whereas the mayor and council of the City of Hackensack is of the opinion that such circumstances may presently exist, and whereas the Township Council wishes to discuss the following issues: personnel matters, ongoing litigation, matters involving attorney-client privilege. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and council of the City of Hackensack deem it necessary to exclude the public from this discussion. The outcome of this discussion will be disclosed within 90 days or at such time as the interests of the city do not require confidentiality. We need a motion.
Motion, please.
Offered.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. That's it. Thank everybody for coming. Thank the public.